The Whispering Lake, Chapter 4, The Old Journal. The morning was gray again, but then again, Emma wasn't sure she'd ever seen the sun here. Fog draped over Blackthorn Lake like a burial shroud, thick and unmoving. The air had that strange, metallic chill that made the back of her neck prickle. Daniel was already outside when Emma woke, standing at the edge of the porch, hands shoved deep into his hoodie pockets. His breath came out in thin clouds. "You didn't sleep either," she said, softly, stepping up beside him. He shook his head, eyes fixed on the water. "I swear I heard something walk on the dock." Emma's heart clenched. "You heard it?" "Yeah," he said. "Wood creaking, steps, slow, but when I checked, nothing. Like it was playing with me." Neither of them mentioned the figure Emma had seen last night. The memory of it hovered between them like fog. Inside, the cabin creaked and moaned as it settled. Or maybe that was just what Emma told herself to stay calm. She made coffee while Daniel checked the truck. When he came back, his face was pale. "The engine's dead," he said. "Battery's completely drained." "But it was fine yesterday." "Yeah, I don't get it. It's like everything just dies out here." The cabin was silent, except for the faint lap of water against the dock. And under that sound, Emma swore she could hear something softer. Not quite a voice, not quite wind, a whisper just below the edge of hearing. She wrapped her sweater tighter around her body and tried to focus on something tangible, anything. That's when she noticed the small pull-down ladder in the hallway ceiling. "The attic," she murmured. Daniel followed her gaze. "What about it?" "I don't remember seeing it yesterday." He grabbed a flashlight and tugged the ladder down. It groaned in protest, like it hadn't been touched in years. A musty, wet smell drifted down, thick with the scent of mildew, and something faintly sweet, like lake water left to rot. Emma climbed up first. The attic was low and narrow, filled with old furniture draped in yellowed sheets. Sunlight pushed through a single round window, cutting pale beams through the dust. Her boots crunched on something, an old newspaper, brittle and flaking. The date, 1968. "Creepy," Daniel muttered, pulling himself up behind her. In the far corner, half buried under a moth-eaten quilt, Emma saw a small wooden chest. Its edges were warped with water damage, and the lock was rusted through. She pried it open with her fingernails. Inside were a pile of black and white photographs, the cabin, the lake, and faces she didn't recognize. The same dock, always the same dock. Some photos showed people smiling, fishing, laughing. But as the years in the photos progressed, the smiles disappeared. By the last handful, the lake was empty, and the faces were blurred, as though the water had started pulling at their outlines. And then she saw it, a leather-bound journal, its cover warped and soft from dampness. Her grandfather's name was faintly etched on the inside cover. Arthur Carter, 1967. Her hands trembled as she flipped to the first entry. June 3rd, 1967. "The lake is different this year. The water is lower, but at night I swear it's deeper than it should be. The fish are gone. It's too quiet. Marie says she hears something whispering outside. I tell her it's the wind, but I'm not sure anymore." Emma's pulse quickened as she turned the page. The handwriting became messier, the lines more frantic. July 19th, 1967. It said my name, right there on the dock. I thought it was a dream, but my feet were wet when I woke. Marie begged me not to answer it, but it sounds like my brother. He's been dead 10 years. August 2nd, 1967. It shows you what you want. It told me I could see him again. All I had to do was step into the water. God help me, I almost did. September 11th, 1967. The lake isn't water, it's a mouth. It feeds on names, on people. Marie is gone. I heard her laughing out there in the fog last night. I think I'm next, but I won't give it what it wants. I won't. The last entry was a single line, jagged, almost carved into the page. If it whispers your name, you've already lost something. Holy shit, Daniel whispered behind her. Emma hadn't realized she was crying until her tears smeared the ink slightly. The handwriting was her grandfather's. He'd heard the whispers. He'd lost someone. And whatever had happened to Marie, their grandmother, was tied to the lake. Daniel sat back against an old trunk, rubbing his forehead. Okay, so it's not just a creepy story. He actually believed this. Emma closed the journal carefully. No, she said, he didn't believe it. He lived it. They climbed down from the attic in silence. Outside, the fog was thicker than ever. It swallowed the edges of the dock, the trees, even the horizon. The lake was no longer just part of the scenery. It was the center of everything. Later that afternoon, Emma sat on the porch, the journal open on her lap. Daniel tinkered with the dead truck engine, but kept glancing nervously at the water. Each page she reread pulled her deeper into a story that was starting to mirror their own. It shows you what you want. The line echoed in her head like a heartbeat. She thought of the whisper that had sounded like her mother's voice years ago, just before she disappeared. And that's when she heard it again. Emma, it's okay. Come home. Her blood turned to ice. That wasn't just a whisper. That was her mother's voice. The Whispering Lake. Chapter 6. The Woods Remember. The muddy footprints vanished into the tree line, swallowed by the fog and the skeletal silhouettes of the pines. Daniel stared at them like they were a riddle he could solve if he just tried hard enough. But Emma already knew. This wasn't something that wanted to be solved. It wanted to be followed. Emma. Daniel's voice was firm, though his eyes betrayed his fear. We follow them. We find whoever, or whatever this is. We end it. She hesitated, clutching the journal close against her chest. And if it's not a person, Dan, what if it's what Grandpa was talking about? He looked away, jaw tight. Then we see it, and we run. The woods were silent as they stepped past the tree line. Not quiet, silent. No birds, no wind, just the crunch of their boots on wet leaves and the soft drag of fog around their ankles. The trees pressed close, old and twisted, their bark blackened with damp. The footprints wound through the forest in a perfect line, like a child had walked with absolute certainty of where they were going. Emma whispered, "They're too small, like a kid." Daniel didn't answer. His flashlight beam wavered slightly in the mist. About 50 meters in, the footprints stopped at a clearing. The ground here was sunken, like something had once stood there and then rotted away over time. Emma smelled it before she saw it. Wet earth and old iron. A rusted swing set leaned at a broken angle, its chains whispering faintly, though there was no wind. Beside it stood a half-collapsed cabin, smaller than theirs. Rotting wood, a broken window, moss growing through its roof. It looked forgotten, but not empty. The footprints went straight through the open doorway. Daniel raised the flashlight. "We're going in." "Daniel!" But he was already moving. Emma followed, her stomach tightening with every step. Inside, the air was colder than it had been outside. The floorboards were warped and soft, and the walls were covered with water stains shaped like hands. A child's toy horse sat in the corner, its wooden eye cracked. Something about it was wrong. Its head was turned toward the door as if it had been listening for them. On the far wall hung a framed photograph, its glass shattered. Emma brushed away the dust. A family of 4 stared back. Parents smiling. 2 children, a little boy and a little girl. Emma froze. The girl had the same face she'd seen outside the cabin window on their first night. Same wide eyes, same hollow expression. "This is..." Emma's voice trembled. "This is her." Daniel stepped closer. "The Lake family." She turned. "What?" He pointed to a line of blackened newspapers stacked in a corner. The top one was half-eaten by mold, but the headline still bled through. "Blackthorn Lake Tragedy. Family of 4 vanishes. 1968. Search ends after weeks. Locals refuse to speak." Emma's heartbeat pounded in her ears. This was it, her grandfather's year. The lake had taken them too. A noise echoed from deeper inside the cabin, soft, rhythmic, wet, like someone walking through water barefoot. Daniel raised the flashlight again. The sound was coming from below. In the center of the floor, hidden beneath an old rug, was a trap door. Emma's breath caught. "Don't!" But he crouched anyway, brushing the rug aside. The door was old, but still solid, with a heavy iron ring set in its center. As Daniel pulled, the hinges screamed, a high, sharp sound that cut through the stillness. Cold air rushed out from below, colder than anything outside. It smelled of stagnant lake water, rot, and something else Emma couldn't name. Something alive. The beam of the flashlight revealed a narrow wooden staircase descending into darkness. At the bottom, the faintest glimmer of black water shimmered like oil. Emma shook her head. No, we are not going down there." But Daniel stared into the hole as though it was calling him. What if this is where they went? Her fingers dug into his arm. "Daniel, people died here. It wants us down there." He blinked, like breaking from a trance, and stepped back. The fog had thickened around the clearing. The trees seemed closer than before. Something had changed. The woods felt like they were listening. Then came the whisper. "Daniel?" It didn't come from the forest. It came from the trap door. Daniel stumbled back, flashlight shaking. That was my mom's voice." Emma's throat went dry. "Your mom's alive, Dan. She used to say my name just like that when I had nightmares." The voice came again, louder, clearer. "Daniel, come down." He backed toward the wall. Emma felt something shift beneath the floor, like something was moving slowly in the black water below. The sound wasn't human. It was low and gurgling, wet. She slammed the trapdoor shut and dropped the rusted rug back over it. The whisper stopped. For a heartbeat, everything was still. Then, the swing outside began to creak, back and forth, back and forth, with no wind. They ran, Through the fog, through the trees, neither of them spoke. The forest around them pulsed like a heartbeat. When they finally reached their cabin, Emma collapsed against the porch railing, gasping for air. Daniel stared back at the tree line. The swing had stopped, but something in the woods hadn't. Emma whispered, "It remembers." Daniel frowned. "What?" She held up the journal with shaking hands. "This all happened before. It's just repeating, over and over." That night, Emma placed the journal on the table, flipping to a random page near the end. The ink was smudged with water, but one sentence bled through clearly. "If you hear their voices in the woods, don't answer. It's already beneath you." And as if the lake itself could hear her, the fog outside the cabin pressed against the windows like a living thing. They weren't alone anymore. They never had been. End of Chapter 6. The Woods Remember. The Whispering Lake. Chapter 7. The Children in the Fog. The fog was alive that night. It didn't just hang over the lake, it pressed against the windows, curled under the porch, and breathed against the walls like a thing that wanted in. Emma sat at the kitchen table with the old journal in front of her, her hands cold and stiff. Daniel stood near the window, flashlight off, just listening. Outside, everything was silent, unnaturally so. Then, from somewhere near the dock came a sound. Children laughing. Not the playful kind. It was light, airy, and wrong, as if joy had been hollowed out of it. Emma's head snapped up. "Dan, I hear it," he whispered. The laughter floated through the fog, drawing closer, soft footsteps slapping wet wood, then crunching against the soil. A faint knocking followed, not on the door, not on the windows, on the walls. 3 knocks, a pause, then 3 again, like a game. Knock, knock, knock. Knock, knock, knock. Daniel grabbed the flashlight, but when he switched it on, it only flickered. Dim, sickly yellow. Emma's breath fogged in the air. The temperature inside the cabin dropped suddenly, as though the lake itself had seeped through the walls. The knocking stopped. Then came the whisper. "Let us in." A child's voice, a girl, barely above a breath. Emma pressed her back to the wall, shaking her head. "No, no." But Daniel whispered, "We should at least see." "No!" But it was too late. He stepped toward the front window, wiping away the condensation with the sleeve of his jacket, and that's when he saw them. 3 children stood just beyond the porch steps. A boy and 2 girls, barefoot. Their skin was waterlogged, pale and waxy like drowned corpses. Their hair clung to their faces. They wore nightgowns that looked like they belonged to another century. But their eyes glowed faintly, as if reflecting light from beneath the lake. They were smiling. Emma backed away, closed the curtains. Daniel didn't move. He was staring at one of the girls, the smallest one with a cracked porcelain doll clutched to her chest, her lips parted. "Daniel," she said, not whispered, said,
in his mother's voice. His fingers loosened around the flashlight. Emma grabbed his arm and yanked him back. "It's not her." His voice cracked. "She used to read me to sleep with that voice, Em." The little boy tilted his head, and from somewhere behind them, more laughter echoed in the fog. Not 3, more, dozens, a chorus of hollow joy. Emma forced herself to the door and slid the deadbolt across with a sharp clack. "We stay inside. We don't talk to them." Daniel whispered, "What if they're stuck here?" "They're not kids anymore," she hissed. "They're what the lake left."
The children didn't move. They stood in the same positions for hours. Emma watched from the edge of the curtain as their faces slowly tilted upward toward the cabin, their smiles stretching unnaturally wide. And then, as the clock struck 3:12 a.m., the fog moved. Not like mist, like a wave. It pushed against the house, creaking the wood, rattling the roof. The children disappeared in it like fish into water. But something came closer. Tap. On the back window. Tap. Tap. Emma turned. The window above the sink was fogged over from the outside. A small handprint appeared on the glass, then another and another. Tiny, wet hands pressing against the pane like they wanted to push their way through. Daniel stumbled back. "Oh God!" The door handle twisted. They both froze, slowly, gently. The handle began to turn down, as if someone, something, was trying to be polite. Emma whispered, "They can't come in." Her voice shook as she remembered her grandfather's journal. "It doesn't need the door open. It comes inside anyway." The handle stopped. Silence. And then creaking floorboards. From inside the house. Daniel turned slowly, flashlight shaking. "Emma, tell me you locked the back door." Her heart pounded. "I thought I did." The beam swept across the kitchen, empty. The living room, empty. But then it hit the hallway. A shape stood at the end. A little girl, wet hair dripping onto the floor, doll in her hand. She smiled. Her lips didn't match the voice that came from her. "Emma, come play." The flashlight flickered out. Panic hit like a wave. Daniel grabbed Emma's hand and pulled her toward the bedroom, slamming the door and shoving the dresser in front of it. The house moaned with pressure as the fog scraped at the windows like nails on glass. From the hallway came soft, uneven footsteps, then giggles, then whispers. "Play with us. Stay forever. The lake is waiting." Something scratched at the door, long, slow, wet. Emma buried her face into Daniel's shoulder, breathing hard. He wrapped an arm around her, whispering, "We'll get out. At sunrise, we'll leave." But Emma had seen it in the journal. Sunrise doesn't stop it. For hours, the whispers surrounded them. They didn't try to break in. They didn't need to. The thing in the fog had patience. It had already been here long before them, and it could wait. As dawn's gray light finally crept through the curtains, the sounds faded. Daniel pushed the dresser aside with trembling arms. The hallway was empty, but the floor was wet, as though something had walked through it all night. Emma stared at the puddles, her heart hollow. They got in, she whispered. End of chapter 7. The Children in the Fog.
The Whispering Lake. Chapter 8. The Drowned. Morning came gray and thin, like sunlight forced through dirty water. The fog had not lifted. It hung heavy over the trees and pressed low against the cabin roof, muting every sound like a heavy blanket. Emma and Daniel barely spoke. The floorboards were still wet from the night before. Little puddles trailed from the hallway to the kitchen and ended at the back door. Whatever had been inside was no longer there. Or maybe, Emma thought, it still was. Daniel stood at the table, staring at the rusty truck keys as if sheer willpower could make the engine start. Emma wrapped herself in a blanket, the journal lying open beside her. Her grandfather's last entries bled through her mind in a steady, whispering loop. It shows you what you love, then it takes you. The lake doesn't drown people, it keeps them. She whispered to Daniel, "We have to leave, now, on foot if we have to." He didn't answer right away. His eyes flicked toward the window, toward the lake hidden beyond the fog. "You didn't hear it last night. It wasn't just my mom's voice." "What?" "It said it could give her back." Emma felt her stomach drop. "Dan!" He turned, his face pale and strained. "I know it's not real, but what if it is? What if it has her?" She grabbed his shoulders. "That's what it wants. It wants you to follow it." Daniel looked down at her hands gripping him. Slowly, he nodded, but his eyes were far away. They packed what little they had, flashlights, matches, the journal. Emma stuffed the keys in her pocket, though they both knew the truck was useless. Daniel slung the backpack over his shoulder, and they stepped outside. The world was silent. No birds, no wind. Even the water lapping against the dock had gone still, like it was holding its breath. The footprints they'd seen the night before were gone, wiped clean as if the ground itself had been smoothed over. They started down the old dirt road that led through the woods. The fog thickened with each step, swallowing the cabin behind them. It felt less like they were leaving, and more like the cabin was erasing itself. Halfway down the road, Daniel slowed. "Do you hear that?" Emma froze. It was a faint humming, soft, sweet, a lullaby. She recognized it immediately. Her mother used to hum that tune when Emma was little. The sound came from the lake's direction. "Dan, keep walking." But Daniel was already turning. His eyes were glassy, unfocused. "That's her voice." Emma grabbed his arm, but the fog was thick now, wet and cold, seeping into their clothes. The humming grew louder, closer, and beneath it, she could hear something else, a gurgling breath, like lungs that had filled with water long ago. "Daniel," she pleaded, "look at me." He took a step toward the fog, then another. "Dan!" she screamed. Something moved in the mist, a figure. It looked like his mother. Same height, same hair. She was barefoot, dripping wet, and smiling softly. Her eyes were glassy black, like the surface of the lake itself. "Daniel," she said. His breath hitched. "Mom!" Emma shoved herself between them. "It's not her!" The figure tilted her head. Its smile widened. Water dripped from her lips, and behind it, Emma saw shapes, more figures, half-seen silhouettes, standing in the fog. Dozens of them. The drowned. The children from the night before. The parents from the 1968 photograph. Her grandfather's voice in the journal. All of them, standing, waiting. The figure that looked like Daniel's mother extended a soaked gray hand. "Come home." Daniel's steps faltered. His face crumpled. "She's right there."
Emma did the only thing she could. She slapped him across the face. His head snapped back, his eyes focused, breath ragged. "She's dead, Daniel," she whispered, "and that thing is wearing her like a mask." The shapes in the fog began to move closer, their feet dragging through wet earth. Their whispers bled together, hundreds of voices, each one calling Emma and Daniel's names in perfect imitation of people they had loved. The humming turned into a low, wet moan. Daniel stumbled back. "Run!" They ran, through the fog, through the trees. Branches scraped their arms, the ground sucked at their boots, but the voices followed, not fading, not tiring. The fog moved with them, closing around them like a hand. Emma clutched the journal to her chest as if it could protect her. She thought of her grandfather, of the final line he wrote. "The lake isn't water, it's a door." They broke through the tree line and stumbled back into the clearing with the swing set. The small collapsed cabin loomed ahead, the trap door beneath the rug. The humming grew louder. The figures were at the edge of the clearing now, their heads all tilting in the same motion, like marionettes on the same string. Emma grabbed Daniel's arm. "We can't go back to our cabin. They'll find us there." His chest rose and fell fast. "Then where?" Emma's eyes fell on the trap door. Her stomach twisted. "No," Daniel said, "we're not going down there." "It's where this started, and maybe where it ends," she whispered. The whispers grew louder, their edges sharpening, overlapping into a single, hungry breath. "Emma, Daniel, come home." The fog surged forward. Dozens of drowned figures stepped into the clearing. Daniel's hand found hers. He nodded once, jaw tight. Together, they yanked the rug away and opened the trap door. The stench of stagnant water rolled up to meet them, thick and heavy. Below, the black water rippled as though it had been waiting. End of Chapter 8. The Drowned. Final chapter/epilogue of your horror story, The Whispering Lake, where the suspense reaches its terrifying climax. Final chapter. The lake opens. The trapdoor yawned like a mouth, black water swirling beneath the weak light of their flashlights. It smelled of decay, earth, and something far older than the lake itself. Emma's hands shook as she gripped the journal. Daniel stood beside her, his knuckles white around the strap of his backpack. The drowned surrounded the clearing now, their pale, soaked forms motionless, but radiating a presence that pressed on their minds. A whisper echoed from the black water below. Hundreds of voices layered into one, rising and falling like a tide. "Come home, come home, come home." Emma swallowed. "We have to go down there," she whispered. "It's the only way." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Are you insane? That water—" "Listen to your grandfather," she said. "It's a door. That's what he meant. It's a door, and it only opens if you step inside." He shook his head. "And if we step in, then we might survive." They climbed down the narrow wooden steps. The water was thick and black, reaching their ankles, then knees, then chest as they descended further. The whispers enveloped them, sometimes sounding like Daniel's mother, sometimes like Emma's father, sometimes like their own voices calling for help. Emma's pulse thundered in her ears. Every instinct screamed to turn back, but the journal glowed faintly in her hands, almost guiding her forward. At the bottom, the water spread into a hidden cavern beneath the lake. Shadows danced along the jagged walls. The drowned stood at the edges, motionless, but watching. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark, hollow and empty, yet full of a hunger Emma couldn't describe. A single voice rose above all others. "Welcome home." It wasn't human. It was the lake itself. Emma realized it had always been here. It wasn't water. It wasn't a lake. It was a being, an ancient presence that consumed life, memories, and names, storing them beneath the black surface. Every whisper, every figure, every laugh and lullaby had been bait, drawn from grief, hope, and longing. Daniel froze, staring at the black water. It's alive." Emma nodded, tears streaming. "It doesn't just drown. It keeps what it wants. And it's waited a long time for us." The water rippled toward them, like fingers reaching up. One of the drowned stepped forward, the little girl from the fog, her doll still in hand. Her voice, now entirely alien, coiled around their minds. "Stay forever." Daniel grabbed Emma's hand. "We leave, together." The cavern shook. Water surged higher. Voices screamed, pleading, coaxing, promising. Emma looked down at the journal one last time. Its pages trembled in her hands, as if warning her that the next choice was final. "Step forward, or we die here." They jumped into the black water, sinking beneath the surface. It was thick, viscous, as though the lake itself wanted to pull them apart. The whispers clawed at their minds, showing visions of loved ones, memories, promises, everything they wanted most in the world. But they held on to each other. Daniel gripped Emma's wrist as she gripped his. Together, they pushed toward the faint light at the center of the cavern. The water resisted, clawing at their legs, pulling at their hair, whispering their names. But step by step, stroke by stroke, they moved forward. Finally, with one final surge, they broke through the water's surface. They emerged in a hidden underground chamber, dry and dimly lit, filled with hundreds of artifacts from the missing, the lost, the consumed. Photographs, toys, journals, and trinkets. The drowned stood around, still and silent, but no longer menacing. It was a vault, a repository of everything the lake had claimed over the centuries. Emma and Daniel clutched each other, gasping. The whispers were gone. Silence, heavy, complete, eternal, filled the chamber. The lake above seemed calm again. Emma flipped the journal closed. "It's over. We survived." Daniel nodded. "For now, but..." His voice trailed off as he looked at the black water above. "It's still there, waiting." They climbed back up through the trapdoor, emerging onto the fog-shrouded clearing. The lake was still, deceptively peaceful. The drowned were gone. The swing swayed gently, windless. They looked at each other. No words were needed. The lake had shown them mercy, but it would wait for the next. As they walked back to their cabin to pack for real this time, Emma glanced over her shoulder. For a brief moment, she thought she saw a small, shadowed figure on the dock, watching them. Then the fog swallowed it completely. The truck started without protest. They drove away from Blackthorn Lake, leaving the fog, the whispers, and the drowned behind. But somewhere deep inside the black water, the lake waited, as patient as ever, because the lake never forgets, and it always remembers the names of those who walk too close. The end. The Whispering Lake.